Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm Drennan and I would love to share my practical tips for conscious parenting with you today. And thank you for being here because this type of parenting is a little bit different to the normal and can be challenging for some people. However, I think given today's society and the increase in teen violence, youth suicide and depression and anxiety in our young kids, it's really important for us to look at how we're treating our kids inside our home, but also outside in the world as well. So what we're covering today, I'd like to share my story with you. I'll talk a little bit about what conscious parenting looks like, what it doesn't look like, why it's important, a little bit of science, because I love having my opinion about all these sorts of things, but if I can grab hold of a little bit of science as well, it just gives me a little bit of grunt to what I'm speaking about. How to do it, I'd love you to be able to take some strategies home that you can put in place with your next conversation with your children. And where to from here if you'd like to know any more. So, can I share my story with you and what brings me here today? In my childhood, we had everything we needed. I grew up in a safe, secure home, plenty of food on the table, plenty of water. I didn't have to go to the river for water. I was able to go to school and get a safe education. But that was the shell, the exterior. Inside that, there was really no connection in the home between family members. And I believe that connection is a basic human need. And in fact, so much so that it's the antidote for depression and anxiety. But what is connection really? We're all connected at the drop of a hat with our phones, the internet. But really for me, connection with my children is encouraging them to be their true, authentic selves, to show up in life as the kids they were born to be, and not me limiting them based on my beliefs and what I've brought from my childhood into the current space, and my judgments about what a good child should look like. I want to be able to hold space for them, give them a safe container so in the early years they can step out into life a little bit and try a few things and come back to this safe container. As they grow, step out a little bit more and come back and step out further and further and further until they grow into adults who are now have strong self-worth, self-belief, self-trust and self-love. And they'll fall down. Many a time they'll fall down, but they'll get back up and keep going because they have this strong sense of self. And I don't think it's just about the parent-child relationship where connection is important. It's also important for adults because every adult needs to be seen, heard, understood and accepted for who they truly are at their core. And if you can find that connection with other people in your life, hang on tight, because I believe that that's where an awesome life can be lived. I believe that all our challenges in life lead to opportunity if we choose to see the lessons. Back when my kids were little, I used to listen to other parents tell stories about their teenagers and the tough times they were having, and I would smirk inside. I didn't believe it. I knew what I had as a child and I wasn't going to do the same thing to my kids, and we were going to cruise through teenage years. Well, that didn't quite happen. Came back and slapped me in the face big time. I've got 3 kids, 2 of them, 2 girls. They fit in really well with my beliefs about parenting and they cruised through. But my son, completely different story. Me trying to put him into a little box and control him was never going to happen. And I paid the price big time. I kicked him out of home, which was very challenging, a difficult thing to do, but I wore the anger and the hate from him for 2 years. But I know, knowing what I know now, underneath that anger and hate is pain. There is always pain. Anger and hate are just secondary emotions. And I took away from that boy the very thing that every child needs, and that is unconditional love from his parent, but I couldn't give it to him. As soon as he started to behave in ways that were outside my beliefs around what a good kid should look like, I took love away from him. He would later say to me, you took everything away from me, and I didn't get it, because really all I did was ask him to move in with his dad. But I now get it. He meant love. He didn't know it at the time either, but I took love away from him. That painful time, that led me to make drastic changes in my life. Why I chose to change? Well, obviously, after my childhood, I was driven to have a connected relationship with each of my children, and I could not understand how I could be in that position and have this relationship with my son. I have a deep desire to understand the human mind, people's behaviour, mine in particular, and I wanted to stop repeating the patterns of my past and to live every day with passion. It's such a cliche, but that's what I was seeking. And to open my heart, no longer live in fear of people seeing the true, authentic me, which is what I wanted to give my children. So I started a psych degree a couple of years ago at USC here. Well, that didn't last long. I realised I was just sitting in my comfort zone of learning, but not putting the information out there, not sharing my opinions. So I left the degree after 2 weeks, and then I absorbed all I could on TED Talks, my favourite being Brene Brown on courage, vulnerability and shame, and Sir Ken Robinson on creativity in the education system and what we're doing to our kids in early years education. Bruce Lipton is a cell biologist in Stanford, but he left his position there when he realised through experiments that we don't pass genes down, and our kids don't get sick based on the genes that are passed down to them, but the genes express themselves based on the environment around them. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Personality profiling. This was so much fun to look at the different personalities, to see how I relate to my children. I am an introvert, big time. I have a very bubbly, energetic, extroverted oldest daughter. When she left home, she used to come to visit on weekends. It was awesome because she'd bring her huge energy in, but by the end of it on a Sunday night, when she'd be leaving, I'd look at my youngest daughter, who's also an introvert, and we'd just go like this to each other. Be relaxed now. And then we'd separate and go to our own space and re-energise. I also met with counsellors, mindset professionals, energy healers, teachers, psychologists and psychics. Some I worked with, some I interviewed, some I just had coffee with. I just wanted to know more information. I went to a weekly women's circle on a Wednesday night for 2 years, which in the beginning I hated. I didn't want to turn up. There were a lot of very open-hearted, soft, gentle women there, and I just didn't think I would fit in. I wasn't like that. I walked in with my shell, but a very interesting thing happened. I began showing them a little bit of who I really am, and they began accepting me. So I showed them a little bit more, and they accepted me a little bit more. And I ended up making brilliant friendships out of that group as well, and opening my heart. And I joined business networking events, business networking groups, and turned up. Now, being an introvert, this is hard to actually turn up to them. And I preferred to hang out in the toilet really than talk to people. But I did make some great friendships there, so it was actually worth it as well. And just 6 weeks ago, I joined the Sunny Kids Village Buddies mentoring program, where I mentor a 6-year-old boy, where I pick him up once a week after school and we just go and hang out for 2 hours every week. He has a dad, but he doesn't have a mum. So I just get to fill that little bit of space in his life and make a difference. When I was going through the stuff with my son and right up until that, there was no way I could ever believe that I would ever have anything to give back to another child. And now I'm doing it with a 6-year-old boy. I had to get through my fear of public speaking. This is my first conscious parenting talk. And to get here, I did Toastmasters, I joined the Point TV Presenters Workshop, and learned a lot there. Many thanks to Gerald Porshman, who taught me and came and grabbed me aside when there were moments when the camera was turned on and no words would come out of my mouth. Kim Taylor is here downstairs today. I did her Ultimate Speakers Circle and some mentoring with her, and she's fantastic. It's not about just getting up here and speaking, it's about what's going on inside you and why you can't put yourself out there in the world. For 8 weeks I drove to Brisbane to do improv comedy. This is comedy where there is no script, you just take cues from the audience. So for a recovering overthinker, this is very challenging. You think on the spot and you have to live in the now. This was great training, but the very best lesson I heard was on the last night of training. We did one skit where we had to come up and we had to sing the words rather than speak them. And our facilitator said, we leave this till last because it's the hardest thing of all. And most people, even after all this training we've been through, they come up and they only give 90%. They hold back 10% through fear. And I just put my hand up, it just came straight out of me. Oh my gosh, that's the way I've been living my whole life. I'm not going to do that anymore. So there was a performance with that improv comedy, a little dark, dingy pub in Brisbane, and only half the class turned up. Now I turned up and I went out on stage and it was terrifying. The beginning was terrifying, but as we got into it was pretty fun. Did video marketing intensive training for 5 days. Anything with intensive in the title, I am never doing again. 5 days for an introvert who likes their own space. I actually left in tears. When they turned the camera on me on day 4 and said, all you have to do is talk about your business and talk about you. No, I'm out of here. And now, every Wednesday morning at 6 a.m, Ilka and I meet down at Mooloolaba Beach and we have a conversation in front of a camera and we post it on Facebook regardless, just to put ourselves out there. So this is very different to going to uni and doing the psych degree. We are learning in the public eye. We make mistake after mistake after mistake, but we're willing to put ourselves out there, and it's getting easier, a little easier. So, conscious parenting, what is it? Well, I'm alive and I have kids. Doesn't that make me a conscious parent? Well, no, not exactly. My philosophy is that my kids are my greatest teachers, that they're my ushers to guide me to the life that I was supposed to live. That every challenge with them is an opportunity for growth, both theirs and mine. That emotions, theirs and mine, are just information. Those things that trigger me show me my unmet needs, often from childhood, that I am trying to meet through my parenting style. And they're mirrors to me. Whatever I see in them, be it the good, the bad, the ugly, it's just mirroring what's going on inside me. And I have learned through my son, this was a brilliant lesson, drop control and seek understanding every time, and get present to the now, which improv taught me. What it isn't. It's not about you healing your own inner child. For example, the mum who grows up in a poor family and then goes out and works really hard to earn a decent income so that she can give her kids everything, so that she can indulge them in more than what they need. And then one day they turn around and they're ungrateful for everything that they've received. And she doesn't know how to deal with that because she's parenting from a place of fear based on her own childhood. Or the dad who played rugby and insists that his son does the same, yet his son has an interest in musical instruments. Or the mum who was an elite athlete. She didn't make it to the top, and she sees in one of her kids some natural talent. So she pushes to get that kid to the top so she can live vicariously through that child. It's not projecting your fears onto your kids. You have to do well at school because I didn't, and this is where I am today. You have to make many friends. That's a fallacy. If you've got an introverted child, you will know that 1 or 2 friends is what they need. And you have to work hard because it's the only way to get ahead. Many of us believe that that's the only way in life. In the culture that we live in, many other countries, they don't have the same beliefs. It's not being physically present, but emotionally absent. That happens a lot these days. And your expectations of what a good child is, rather than allowing your child to show you who they truly are. And it's not requiring our kids to be perfect so that we can be seen as the perfect parent. Let's have a look at conscious versus unconscious parenting. So the unconscious parent disciplines through anger, threats, coercion, and punishment. And this does work temporarily, definitely in the early years, but this is why we have so many troubles in the teen years when the kids start to assert their independence. The conscious parent looks at the emotion behind the child's behaviour, and you know that anger, frustration, impatience are secondary emotions. Underlying those is an unmet need or a crossed boundary. And it's not about being passive or permissive. It's still really, really important for you to understand and express your own boundaries. Here's an example. I hate you, Mum. You're the worst parent ever. The unconscious parent might say, go to your room, you're a rude child, you'll get over it. Don't you speak to me like that. Well, I'm the only one you've got. You've got it good. There's worse than me. But the conscious parent knows that there's emotion behind those words. I see you really upset. Can you tell me how you're feeling? I get that I've hurt you. I want to know more. No child should feel that way. I want to learn from my mistakes. Can you help me do that? I want to understand and I'm willing to listen. I have 54 years of parenting across 3 children. I think I learned this. I was this parent. I learned this about 3 years ago. It's changed my life, changed my relationships with my children. Why it's important. No child is born racist or violent or seeking war. Neuroscience tells us that early childhood relationships change our brain. There are empathy centres in the brain, but they will only switch on if the environment is also nurturing, kind and caring. And that's when those neural pathways will grow. So what does this mean? We as parents have a great deal of influence on our child's future emotional intelligence. Providing a healthy, positive, nurturing environment for a young child gives the brain what it needs for that child to grow into a kind, caring adult. We don't need to be seen as leaders in society to make the world a better place. We can make a difference from right inside our homes, one truly connected relationship at a time. And yes, we are making the world a better place through the way we parent. So, how to do it? Let's get to the practical tips. 5 strategies for your next challenging conversation with your child. Catch yourself. This is that moment when they trigger you, when they say something and you've got a golden opportunity in some split seconds when you would normally respond angrily or with impatience. If you can notice that moment and interrupt your usual cycle, you can build new neural pathways so that in future you will react differently. So to do that, you can either click your fingers, clap your hands, touch your toes, any movement that you can think of that will just get you out of your usual response. Calm yourself. The breath is really important. I'm sure we've all heard it, but it actually calms many systems within the body. And I've chosen 3 ways to breathe. This is my choice because I can't just go, oh, deep breaths. So I've chosen something a little bit different that makes me focus more on my breath because I can't focus on my anger while I'm focused on my breath. So I start with the toes. Get grounded, either sitting or standing, and breathe in from your toes all the way up the front of your body, over the top of your head, and back down to your heels. And do that 3 times, because just try to concentrate on that. And you can't be angry at the same time. The brain doesn't work like that. Accept your child's perspective. You may find something that's important to your child seems completely trivial to you. For example, I didn't make the team. Oh, that's nothing, there'll be other opportunities. The other kids laughed at my painting. Honey, your painting is perfect and you're perfect. I got in trouble for talking in class. Well, teachers have a very tough job these days. That's just discounting the emotions that are underneath those. If you can step back and accept what they've got to say, rather than, again, put your beliefs in place, you will make a difference. So how do we do that? We get present. Close your mouth, open your ears, but most importantly, open your heart. Know that there's feelings underlying their behaviour, and think of a time when you as a kid may have gone through something similar, so you can resonate with the feeling that they're feeling. Listen to understand, not respond. Many of us, when we're listening to someone speak, we're just working out in our mind what we want to say in response. We want to try not to do that. We want to tell our kids that what they have to say is important to us and we want to listen. Put away your desire to lecture, because it's not about you. Acknowledge that their struggles in life matter. Don't take anything personally, and understand that there may be embarrassment or shame that you're unaware of. If I were in a conversation with another adult and I wanted to speak about something challenging and they treated me like this, I'd be willing to open up to them. Communicate based on learning styles. There's 4 different learning styles, and I think sometimes we can, have you done the call out from a different room and they pretend that they don't hear you? Sometimes they actually don't hear you. So auditory learners, they learn through listening, and they need new information to be clearly explained. They need a quiet place. So to help them, you can let go of, look at me when I'm talking to you. They don't need to be looking at you to be listening to you. Kinesthetic are movers, so best to move with them, or at least allow them a safe place so that they can move their body while you're trying to communicate with them. And let go of, let's sit and talk. Visual learners like to see demonstrations. So if you can work with them, show them what to do, and let go of, listen to me when I'm talking to you. They're going to work with you to get it done. Read, write, they learn through taking notes or reading, tend to draw and doodle to remember things. So it's great to sit with them and have pens, papers out and let them doodle, and let go of, stop what you're doing and listen to me. That's it. Thank you for joining me, and I'm really excited to have done this for the first time.